Oh, I love this picture of you guys. I think it's probably my favorite picture of all time of the three of you together. Do you remember when it was taken? I think it was in 2006, right after we moved to Henryville, Indiana. And it was our first Christmas season there. I think Liam had just turned 3, and Kevin, that would have made you 9, and Matt, you were 11. And this is right after you tore your ACL, Matt. And we were trying to decide what to do about your knee. And now all three of you have torn your ACL. So that's just crazy as it is. But it's so fun. And Kevin, this is really when you started your interest in genealogy. And I know all of you kind of say right now that you're not so interested in it, but at one point in time, Kevin was really into it. He went on a couple of trips with me. All of you went to cemeteries with me, so that was fun. I think Liam kind of learned to read when we were in cemeteries. But today we're going to talk about a gift that Kevin received from Grandpa Martin, and it is a $2.50 gold piece, an Indian head gold piece that Grandpa Martin gave specifically to Kevin in 2012 in kind of recognition of Kevin, your interest in genealogy. Hopefully you remember that you went on a trip with us to West Virginia. I will try to drop a picture down in there reminding you of the trip with Grandpa Martin and Aunt Kitty and a couple of other people as well. But this Indian head coin, gold coin, was given to you, Kevin, in recognition of that interest in genealogy. Of course, you know that Grandpa Martin has interest in genealogy as well. And it says, Kevin, this $2.50 gold coin is over 100 years old and was given to me by my grandmother when I was about your age. I want you to have it now to safeguard and pass on someday to your children. You've made me very happy by having an interest in genealogy and joining your mother and me in our quest to discover family history. You're quite a photographer, and your photographs helped make a record of our findings. Love, Grandpa Gary, 2012. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the story of this coin and who gave it to Grandpa Martin and who they were, where they lived, when they lived, and maybe a little bit about the backstory. I've talked to Grandpa Martin about it, and I want to pass on to you the story of this very special $2.50 gold coin. The first thing that we're going to do is come into my office space and do a little bit of research on the coin itself before we get into the genealogy of it. We know that it was Grandpa's maternal grandmother who gave it to him, and then he gave it to you, Kevin. So we've got a little bit of research to do both on the coin and on the genealogy.
There are many websites dedicated to the Indian head gold coins, but I chose this one because it has a nice little synopsis of the history of the coins. So I'll read just a little bit of it to you. Beginning around 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt pushed for new designs for U.S. coins. 5 specific coins could be redesigned without going to Congress: a cent and 4 gold coins. Now, something I didn't know is that in order to redesign a coin, it had to go to Congress. I wonder why that is. Maybe that's something that we can research later. So Roosevelt requested that the mint hire a designer, and so they did, and the first guy that they hired died after designing 2 coins, so that they had to hire a new designer, and that guy created a new design for the 3 other coins. So he made the iconic Indian head gold coins that were minted until the beginning of World War I, when the gold supply was drastically reduced. That makes sense, because when you're going into a war, all of the raw materials and all of the people that are working really need to focus their time and energy into the war effort. These quarter eagles were struck again after the war during the late 1920s until after the Great Depression hit in 1929. Of course, everything shut down then, and the coin was produced first in San Francisco and then in Philadelphia. It looks like the coins were popular as gifts or as jewelry pieces, and the $2.50 Indian head gold coins never saw a lot of circulation. Many were melted after Roosevelt recalled gold coins in 1933. Of course, again, um, some things were happening during that time. Thus, pre 1933 gold coins can be relatively rare, but many of the remaining ones are in better condition than if they had been circulated more. And just talking a little bit about the design of them, the Indian head design of the pre 1933 gold quarter eagles is incused or engraved rather than a bas relief design, a difference from other American coins. On the obverse, that's a word that I don't know, obverse is an image of a Native American man, so that must be the front of it, obverse, wearing a headdress and facing left. 13 stars line each side of the image with 6 on the left and 7 on the right. Below lies the date, and above the word Liberty. The designer's initials, BLP, are engraved just above the date. So right now I'm going to drop in a picture of our coin because the one they're showing here on the website is a 1909. We have a 1910. We can definitely see the initials engraved. On the reverse, the coin features a standing eagle. The national bird stands on a bunch of arrows with an olive branch in its left talon. To the left of the arrowheads is a mint mark, if produced other than at the Philadelphia Mint. Inscriptions on the reverse include United States of America, E pluribus unum, In God We Trust, and the denomination $2.50.
Kevin, when Grandpa gave you this coin back in 2012, it was already in this frame. He put it in the frame before he gave it to you. So we have a nice square frame. It's probably, 4 or 5 inches by 5 inches, probably 5 by 5. And then we have the coin that is in the hard cardboard, and then it's stapled in there. In the back, Grandpa had written a note to you, and I didn't know if we could see the back of the coin, so I did lift the note, and we cannot see the coin. Right now, I do not want to take the coin out of the frame, and I don't want to take it out of the hard cardboard. I want to preserve it as best we can. I'm afraid of ripping things. So we'll have to take a look at what the internet says, what the other pictures of the coins say of what's on the back. But we can see that this is our 1910 $2.50 gold Indian head coin. Now, the story that Grandpa Martin told me about the coin was that his maternal grandmother gave it to him when he was a young boy, about the same age as Kevin was in this picture. He doesn't really remember that there was a particular reason why she gave it to him, but he does know a lot about her life, and he remembers very fondly visiting her. Now, her name was Annabelle Hargraves, and she was married to George Clinton Osborne, and you will learn much more about George Clinton Osborne because he has been the focus of a lot of my genealogical research on the Martin side of the family. But he does know that she lived in a little town called Bancroft, West Virginia, where I have been a couple of times, and it's a very, very poor community. And he knows that it must have been a little bit of a sacrifice for her to give this coin because it's gold, right? And it was given to him at a time when it was really pretty valuable. So he knows that it was something of a tremendous gift that she was giving it to him. She certainly wanted him to keep it, to save it, and then probably to give it to his grandchildren someday. And that's exactly what he did. So now it's time to learn a little bit more about Annabelle Hargraves, your great-great-grandmother.
So as Grandpa Martin said, his grandmother gave him the coin when he was about Kevin's age. So here's Kevin right here. Of course, this is me down here. Here's Grandpa Martin. His name is Howard Garrison Martin Jr. He was named after his father, but the grandmother that gave him the coin was actually his mother's mother. So his mother was Mary Ruth Osborne, and her mother is Annabelle Hargraves. Now, Annabelle Hargraves was married to George Clinton Osborne, and I will tell you a lot more about George Clinton Osborne because I have spent a lot of my genealogy research time trying to figure out who his father is. But that's an entirely different story and an entirely different video to make. But as we look at Annabelle Hargraves and her profile here on the online family tree, we can see that she was born on November 6th, 1880 in Raymond City in Putnam County, West Virginia. Now, something, guys, that you need to remember, 1880 is just 15 years after the end of the Civil War, and she's living in West Virginia, which actually broke apart from the big state of Virginia in 1963, so that it was not going to be a slaveholding state, that it was going to fight for the Union. So this is just, a little bit after the Civil War, which has its own amazing history in and of itself. But she lived from 1880 to 1967, where she died in Wheeling, and that's where Grandpa Martin was born, and that's where my grandparents, Abe and Ruth Martin, lived. And Kevin, you have been there to Wheeling for sure. I think all of you probably have been to Wheeling, maybe not Liam, but it really is an interesting part of the country. It's beautiful. But I want to show you a little bit more about Annabelle Hargraves. We know that she lived in, a somewhat difficult time in West Virginia, but we do have a picture of her right here with her husband, George Clinton Osborne. Now, it's a copy of a picture, so it's not great, but here is Anna and George Osborne in 1935. Grandpa Martin was born in 1938, so this is shortly before Grandpa Martin was born, but this is a picture of her in 1935. At this point in time, World War II hasn't started yet. She gave the coin to Grandpa Martin when Grandpa Martin was about Kevin's age, so we'll say, 9, 10. And so that would have been in the mid to late 40s, again, right after World War II, meaning that she's been through, 2 wars now, the First World War and the Second World War. We learned a little bit more about the coin during that time and the difficulties about keeping the coin during war and what that meant. So really, this was a big deal for Annabelle Hargraves, Annabelle Osborne, to not only keep this coin away from being melted, but also keep it in such good shape to give it to her grandson who would come visit her in Bancroft. And we need to take a look at where Bancroft is. But it was a big deal. She was poor. She lived in a very poor community. And for her to save this in such great condition and pass it along to her grandson was a really big deal. Now let me show you where Bancroft is. So we are in West Virginia here. It's hard to see, but this is Charleston, West Virginia, which is the capital of West Virginia. Bancroft is just a little bit northwest of Charleston. And as we zoom in, we can see that Bancroft is right on this river. And this river is the Kanawha River. I have a hard time pronouncing that, but it's Kanawha River. And as we go and look at this, here is Bancroft again. It's literally right on the river. But all of these different little communities, this Black Betsy, this Raymond City, this Polka, all along this river right here, people who worked in the coal mines, that's all they did. They were working in the coal mines, so they were very poor. They didn't have a lot going on in their communities. It was just a bunch of houses and a church. I've been to this community not too long ago, and it is very similar to what it was back in the 30s and 40s. In fact, I met a woman who remembers Annabelle Hargraves, Annabelle Osborne, and remembers the family there. And so it's very close-knit. It's very small. They lived in a house that was right on the river. It's a beautiful home. Now it's been redone quite a bit, but Grandpa Martin remembers going to Bancroft quite a bit and visiting his grandparents there. So next time you see Grandpa Martin, please ask him about it. I know that he would love to tell you more stories about his time in Bancroft and about his time with his grandparents.
So that's the story of how Grandpa Martin got this gold coin, and Kevin, how it got into your hands. I know you've had it in your room for as long as you've had it, since 2012. That's been 10 years ago now. But we're going to keep it safe, and in time, maybe in the next 10 years, you'll be able to pass it along to one of your children. Because that's the way it goes. When you have heirlooms, when you have something that's important in your family, you keep it, you treasure it, and you pass it along so that the history of your family stays alive. That's why I love my motto, you're making history today, because everything that you do makes a difference for the future. I love you guys.